You're listening to the Whole Hog Sports Podcast. And now, here's your host, Matt Jones.
Ryan Silverfield introduced as Arkansas's new coach yesterday. We'll talk about what he had to say. First, a word from Kendall King.
Kendall King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kendall King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kendall King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
I think the main thing I took away from Ryan Silverfield, his introduction yesterday is, and this is really the way it should be with anybody, like take away the sheet of paper and just let them be themselves. Like whenever you're sitting there reading off a piece of paper, you sound totally different than whenever you're just reacting and being yourself. And I thought that was, as I listened to him yesterday, I was kind of, the first couple 3 minutes, it's like, I don't know that I like this a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I like it.
It was awkward.
Yeah, it's just, it was clearly, rehearsed. Mm-hmm. And I'm not.
That's how that usually goes, though, right?
I'm not a person who likes to be rehearsed.
Yeah.
And that's
I know that about
maybe
you.
That says something about me. But it just felt like, once the questions started coming and he was a little bit more unprepared for. I don't want to say he was unprepared because I'm sure he was. He
he's
knew
going
some
off
of the
the cuff.
questions.
It's not.
Right.
I feel like there's an added level of stress. Like if I'm sitting here and reading.
That's when I thought that you really kind of you were able to take away. You were kind of able to learn who this guy was.
Yeah. Like I think anytime you're reading off a thing, like when if I'm hosting the podcast and I do the ad read, I feel like I'm more likely to trip over my words if I'm reading off of something or like, get sort of, I feel like there's an added stress level when you're like reading off of something, but that's kind of normally how these press conferences go. They have kind of a prepared statement and then they open it up. And so, I think he's a good speaker, especially with some of the questions we asked. I mean, I don't think anybody was asking him hard questions necessarily, because there's not really been
you
that much
think,
to.
What's your favorite barbecue was a hard question?
No, I think that one might have been simple, but no, I think with I think Hunter was more the one that was getting the hard questions, which makes sense, right? Ryan Silverfield has not really done anything yet that we've got some coaching hires coming out this morning, but yesterday we were asking him about them and he couldn't really say anything. I don't think he's, when a coach hasn't gotten to really do much yet that you can question. It's you don't always get super tough questions. But it was more of, hey, tell us about kind of what you're planning. It was more like it was more forward looking, I think, which makes sense.
He was able to articulate his plan for what he sees the football team being. I was listening to Hunter Yurachek talk on a radio show this morning. He said that whenever he went and met in person with the 3 finalists. And he never said who the 3 finalists were yesterday, but I confirmed. Well, he didn't tell me who they were, but I was able to confirm that it was Golish and Womack and obviously Silverfield who got the job. He said when he went to go meet with those 3 finalists, though, that he asked them to come up with a kind of a presentation for what their first 100 days on the job would look like. In terms of, how are you going to use your NIL allotment? How are you going to use your staff salary allotment, your support staff, and these things? And he said that Silverfield's presentation to him, I think he said it lasted like 4 hours, which kind of tells you the level of detail that is there. And that's what we've heard from the people who know him. I mean, Bray Cook talked to me the night that he was hired, and he said that his level of detail is, I think he used the word Nick Saban-esque. Now, it's not saying he's Nick Saban, but he's just saying that in terms of being detailed and, kind of just being able to look over the entire football operation. He thinks that it's at that, and you can't get, I don't think you can get any higher compliment than that. I mean, that's the standard that everybody has been trying to chase in the game for over 15 years now. So I think that, there's a level of detail and a level of preparation that he has that, I can certainly see where that would be appealing to someone if you're about to try to make that kind of hire.
One thing that impressed me more than anything he said at the podium was getting Quincy Rhodes and KJ Jackson to stay. Yeah. Quincy Rhodes in particular. I mean, that is a guy who was potentially going to be like a first-round pick? I mean, a high pick.
And he still could be.
He still could be, but this is, that's a risk. We saw what happened with Landon Jackson.
He's committed to coming back to Arkansas. Does he change his mind? I don't know. I don't know anything about what he's thinking, but I just would say that, like there have been a number of times where somebody says or leads you to believe that they're going to be back, and then
I mean, we've seen it happen before. I guess I would be surprised if they were going to do that in the press conference and he were willing to do that in the press conference if he were still on the fence at all.
I think I would too.
Things can change. We all know Patrick Kudus. Like, people say stuff, but
it's not final until the ink is dry.
Yeah,
I guess when it comes to the draft, it's not final until you get past the deadline.
Yeah. So
and KJ Jackson, I mean, he was going to be able to go out and command a pretty big number on the open market. I don't know that he played great in the 2 games when he got an opportunity to this year.
He showed a lot of potential.
Against Texas, his numbers were pretty good. Against Missouri, they were okay. But I think people look at him and they see, hey, there's a lot of growth potential for him, and so I think that would have made him valuable on the open market. Yeah.
So I thought, and doing that in the press conference, that was kind of like oh crap, like this is.
He can recruit.
Serious. Yeah.
He can recruit. I mean, I think that, that's really the big takeaway from week 1 of him is that whether it be the players that he got to commit here in the state who some of them had been committed elsewhere, some of them had been committed elsewhere and then decommitted. But the point being, like, these were 4 of the 3 top recruits in Arkansas, or 3 of the top recruits in Arkansas, 4-star recruits, and then a 3-star recruit who I think is probably a little underrated.
Which one?
Ja'Cory Smith at Bryant. I think I watched him and TJ Hodges play, obviously because they play for the same team. I was more impressed with Ja'Cory Smith than I was with TJ Hodges. Doesn't mean I don't, I think Hodges could be a good player, but I came away from that game thinking that Ja'Cory Smith was the best player on the field, period, either team. So he gets them to commit to Arkansas. He gets Jackson and Rhodes, like you said, to stay with the program, say that they're going to stay with the program. And I'm with you. I think Rhodes, like they couldn't have gotten a 5-star player potentially who would have been any bigger keep for them than Rhodes was. Like you said, they're talking about maybe 1st-round draft pick with this guy.
So that tells me that's evidence of this financial commitment that they've made, because I don't know what they had to offer for him, but I
would guess over $1 million.
Yeah, it is not inexpensive. So I think, when somebody was asking Hunter Yurachek, like, what is going to be the evidence of this? How are we going to see this manifest? And he started talking about the staff. I was like, your evidence is sitting right there. And he did get to that later.
Do you think Quincy Rhodes was a 7-figure commitment? Like somebody said, hey, I will pay whatever it takes to keep that guy.
Yeah, they did the John Tyson, John Calipari. I'm going to pay for that guy.
Yeah. Because for those who didn't listen, and I'm sure most people who are listening to us probably heard this, but during the press conference, Yurachek said that Silverfield had a conversation, a 5-minute conversation with somebody, and got a 7-figure financial donation out of that 5-minute conversation. And he's got a background in fundraising. Yeah. Bray Cook told us this, that when he was at Memphis is old school, by the way. I looked into their fundraising after Bray told me about this, and here there's the Razorback Foundation, which then sends resources out to every program. Memphis is old school. It's kind of like a high school in that there's a booster club for different sports. There's a booster club for basketball. There's a booster club for football, for baseball. And the way Bray described it to me was that Silverfield, whenever he was at Memphis as an assistant coach, so this was before he got promoted to head coach in 2019, that one of his responsibilities as an assistant coach was to go out and raise funds on behalf of the booster club. And he said that played a big role at Memphis. They got a new game day locker room. He said they significantly upgraded their football operations building from where they had been to they got a new one. And then they're currently in the process of renovating the Liberty Bowl Stadium. So he's got this background. I think his wife might have a little bit of a background in that too, given the fact that she's a lobbyist. So I know Pittman, he have some events down at his lake house in Hot Springs where he brought people in and he tried. But I do feel like part of getting people to give you money is your ability to communicate with them. And Sam, I think he's a good people person. I don't think he's a good communicator in front of a microphone. And so I think you have to be able to be good at both to maximize your potential in that role. And I'm talking about as a fundraiser. And I know football coaches, they got a lot going on. They shouldn't have to be fundraisers, but that's just kind of how it goes. If you want to give money to a program, you're probably going to need to be schmoozed a little by the coach. And so I think Silverfield, just again, we're 5 days into this tenure here. I would say, though, based on just what I've seen at this point, I think he's probably got the people skills, and that's evident by and reflected by the fact that he's got these players who have committed or stay committed. And he certainly is more engaging behind a microphone than Sam Pittman was.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I think he's done a really good job with the messaging. Like I said on the show the other day, I'm always interested in kind of how they sort of craft these messages and how they sort of do kind of the public relations angle of everything. And I think he's done a pretty good job. Now, I was just talking to somebody this morning from Memphis who knows him, and they were saying, hey, saying is very different than doing. So You'll see, we'll see how it goes. Everybody, winning the press conference doesn't always matter. But when you're in Arkansas's position and you're trying to raise all this money to try to, help with this significant financial commitment that you've made into football, that matters a lot. Winning this kind of thing does matter. And so I think it's been interesting to kind of watch him work. I think the fundraising thing is huge. I think his background in that is huge. And then, I think being a people person, this person I was talking to in Memphis this morning said that he's just really good with people and a really good communicator, and that he can talk to doctors, lawyers, and he can talk to and relate to farmers. Like, he can talk to anybody and kind of find some common ground with them or make them feel heard and have a good conversation with them, which I thought was interesting. And something else I thought, to your point, was, football coaches shouldn't have to be fundraisers, but he's coming from a position where in Memphis he was having to do that for his job, but also, he's been at smaller schools and in smaller roles where you kind of have to do everything. You're used to doing that. He had the analogy about like changing the light bulbs and things like that, and I'll do it myself if I have to. And I think that's a really good attitude for somebody to take as Arkansas is looking to kind of reinvent itself and try to become competitive in the SEC again.
Use the word.
What's the word?
Blue collar. Blue collar.
I actually didn't think about that, but you're right. That's basically what I'm saying, I guess, which is a cliche. And maybe that's something that works out. Maybe it's not. But
I think if you can actually saying that you're going to establish a blue collar program and actually doing it are two different things. Like Dave Van Horn, he has actually, I think, established a blue collar program.
Yeah.
Like they're going to get out there and they're going to sweep the dugout and they're going to they're going to pull the tarp and like. They do, like it is really they take on the reflection of their head coach. There were people remarking, this happens all the time. Van Horn will get out there with a rake and he'll just start raking the field. And, he'll get a broom and he'll start sweeping the dugout. I mean, like for him, there is no detail and task that is too small within that program. And again, I think that, you see that in kind of your everyday life from your head coach. And so then when they're telling you that, hey, there's no detail too small for you to, focus on the field, I think that takes on a life of its own. Now, again, Van Horn's been here for 24 years, and he's been able to establish that. And that's part of, kind of the DNA, if you will, of his program. We'll see if Silverfield can do that with football. Football's a totally different animal in a lot of different ways. But blue collar, that's the word I keep coming back to. And it makes me wonder, let's say that's really who he is, and I don't have any reason to doubt it. I would think that there's a relatability there. I'm not saying that because Sam was an everyman.
Because I was going to say, do you think Sam Pittman was not blue collar though? Because I kind of think he was.
Yeah, I think he was blue collar, but
not in this detail, sort of involved in every single thing sort of way.
Sam just passed his expiration date as a head coach. I mean, I think that's ultimately what that was. I think people saw it for what it was last year. That they didn't want to fire him in 23 for whatever reason. They kept him, and whether or not they wanted to let him go last year was irrelevant because nobody was letting their coach go last year. And then finally it gets to the point. It's kind of like Mike Norvell right now at Florida State. Does anybody think that he's going to, make it there much longer? No, they don't. I mean, it becomes very evident that, whenever a coach is going to be let go. So, yes, I think Sam, and I think early on, Sam, his message and his personality resonated with people. He just didn't win enough games. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that this new coach is any different from him relatability to, just from an everyman standpoint. But if he can win and he can maintain that relatability, I think that could be something to watch, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I think relatability is something that people really like. I think people want a coach that they can root for. We talked before they hired a coach about the idea of fit and like, well, how much does fit matter? And I think it doesn't always matter until maybe you start losing. I think I drew the example of Brian Kelly where he did not fit LSU. If he had been winning the way that they wanted him to win, it wouldn't have mattered. Once he started losing and people were already kind of predisposed to not like you that much, or they're predisposed to think of you as not one of them or not somebody that they relate to, then that just piles on to the losing, and it makes them less likely to want to give you any sort of benefit of the doubt or any sort of second chance. And so I think that's where fit, or even just being somebody that people like, kind of helps you. And it matters a little bit more than maybe you might think. But ultimately, if you win games, you're going to be fine. And winning is kind of what it comes down to at the end of the day.
The other thing you got to do is you got to hire a good staff.
Yeah.
And there's some reports out here this morning, mostly from Matt Zenitz. Am I saying his name right?
I actually don't know.
Zenitz?
I read it as Zenitz, but I have no idea if that's correct.
Yeah. From Matt at CBS Sports, he reports that, I want to make sure I've got these names right, offensive coordinator Tim Cramsey and wide receivers coach Larry Smith will be coming from Memphis. Also says that they're going to hire Florida's defensive coordinator, Ron Roberts. Roberts has been a guy who I think it was before – it was when Barry Odom left and Travis Williams got hired. I don't know if Roberts was a legitimate candidate at that time, but I do remember hearing his name floated as a potential defensive coordinator. I think he might have had a relationship with Pittman somewhere down the line where people were trying to draw a correlation between them. So that's a name that I have heard before. Florida defensively, if you look at their numbers this year, they weren't great. But if you kind of dig into the data a little bit more, the numbers got progressively worse as the season went on. What I remember about Florida this year was that defensively, like they were playing in some low-scoring games early in the season. Like South Florida was an 18-16 game. Remember, they had Miami in a really tight game. I think it was like 13-9 or something late in the game, 13-6, and then Miami pulled away. I think they scored a couple of touchdowns really late and made that score look more inflated than the game actually was. So defensively, I think Florida was playing pretty well early in the year, and then they just had that sneaker series where they played Kentucky and they couldn't stop them worth a lick. They played Tennessee, they couldn't stop them. They played Ole Miss okay for a while, and then Ole Miss kind of got loose there toward the end and was able to pull away. You look at them scoring defense this year, they were 64th nationally in scoring defense at 24 points a game. What I did, though, Christina, I went back and looked at our efficiency ratings. So this year, Florida was 12th out of 16 SEC teams in efficiency. Last year, they were 10th out of 16 SEC teams. And then in 2023, he was the defensive coordinator for Hugh Freeze at Auburn. This was Hugh Freeze's first team. And that Auburn defense finished 5th out of 14 teams in efficiency. So there's a track record there that says at Florida, it didn't go very well. You wonder, you also have to look at Florida, I think, and I would give Roberts the benefit of a doubt a little bit in this regard. They fired their head coach in the middle of the season. And so you're not necessarily coaching the same team at the end. You're coaching the same players, but where are their heads at?
Yeah.
Now, at Auburn, it went okay. Last year at Florida, kind of middle of the road. I do think it is interesting, though, that Hugh Freeze hires him, and then Billy Napier was on the hot seat when he hired him as a defensive coordinator before the 24 season. So I would think there's a reputation there. That stands out to me. It's like when you're on the hot seat, every hire you make, especially your coordinators, is getting scrutinized. And you know that if you make the bad one, you're going to be hitting the road before they do. That kind of stood out to me, the fact that they went to him. So the track record, make of it what you will. It doesn't look like it's this great elite defensive coordinator, but there is a lot of experience there. He's a real veteran coach.
Yeah, I'm a little uninspired by this, but I mean, we'll see.
I think he got let go at Baylor.
He did, and I was just looking at their numbers. Their numbers weren't that bad. So
well, Dave Aranda was their head coach.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's one of those deals where...
Yeah, when you've got a defensive coach, it's like how much is...
Who was Nick Saban's defensive coordinator? Nobody knows, other than Kirby. But, I mean, it's like nobody knows who the defensive coordinator is because you really know it's the head coach's defense.
Yeah.
Who's Lane Kiffin's offensive coordinator? It's Lane's offense,
Yeah.
So, the numbers weren't great at Baylor. You look at his... I'm pulling up his resume here.
They're not that bad. They're like in the middle of the Big 12. It's not bad in the last couple of years.
He's been a head coach a couple of times at lower levels, Southeastern Louisiana and Delta State.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I'm skeptical, but I'm not like, wow, what a terrible. I think
58 years old.
Okay. The one thing, and I go back to the messaging, was yesterday when asked Hunter Yurachek what's going to be the evidence, how are we going to see the investment manifest?
By
like,
the
staff they're going to put together. And I'm like, who? Okay, this guy.
Yeah, this certainly doesn't. I mean, when you hear those kind of statements, you would think... It
sets you up for an expectation.
Yes.
And then this is not really what I thought was going to be going on. But I mean, at least on paper, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I think people are a little bit of like a wah-wah about this because it's like, I don't know, after yesterday and then after Silverfield was like, you're going to be blown away by the staff. And then it's like, okay, this guy. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens if they're able to bring in and I say retain. I don't know how much besides Quincy Rhodes they want to retain on defense. Maybe some younger guys, but what they're able to bring in defensively and develop there, we'll see what they're able to do from a talent perspective. But
maybe they're going to get a rock star special teams coordinator. like who would be the rock star special teams?
I don't think I can name you any special teams coordinators.
Go get Rich Bisaccia from the NFL.
Sure.
Or Bones Fossil from the NFL. That would turn my head. Yeah, it's John Fossil, but they call him Bones.
Okay.
Bones Fossil. He was with the Cowboys for a while. He's the one. You look at the Cowboys, their team, but he found Brandon Aubrey, I think.
Okay.
I think he played a role in finding Aubrey, and then Kavonte Turpin, who's been a really good returner for them. I think they got both of those out of the UFL, US, whatever the league was.
Were you watching the Cowboys last night?
Unfortunately.
He made a 62-yard field goal last night? 63? Mm-hmm. Literally, the broadcast, it was just like, and he makes the kick.
Yeah. Well,
cool.
Part of that's Al Michaels. Al Michaels is up past his bedtime every time he calls a game. I was like,
what is happening? This is a huge... And I know that we're seeing like the super kicker now, but I just was Aubrey, like, you're not going to act like this is
Aubrey
awesome.
is the super kicker.
Yes, he's got like, what, 6 over 60 or something?
Jake Bates with Detroit, he's kind of in the same...
Yes, but I still was like... They're literally just acting like he made like a 35-yard field goal.
But there was a game this year where Aubrey kicked a long. It was a 60-something yard field goal, I think. To send it to overtime.
They talked about how they did mention he's made several.
I remember remarking, it's like I've never felt that confident in somebody going to make that. It felt like he was going to make it.
Yeah.
It's like watching Steph Curry shoot a half-court shot. Yeah, I think there's probably a pretty good chance that that's going to go in.
But anyway, not to derail us on Cowboys football, but
they need to go get Bones Fossil as their special teams coordinator. Tim Cramsey, who's the offensive coordinator, I haven't had a chance to look into him just a whole lot, but I did notice that he is he's a New Hampshire guy, and looking into this a little bit, if you're a New Hampshire guy and you're running offense, you're in the Chip Kelly tree, and Ryan Day came out of that tree. And I would suspect that there's probably some overlap somewhere between Cramsey and Ryan Day, but so you're looking at. I'm not saying they're going to run Ohio State's offense. They don't have Jeremiah Smith out here catching balls, but I would suspect that it would be a style that has a lot of the same influences.
Yeah, when you look at numbers there, I mean, they were first in their conference in a couple of, I think, scoring offense at minimum in 23 and 24. They were top 4 every year. I think this year they were maybe 4th. And so, pretty good, at least relative to their conference in terms of scoring. I think passing offense, they were also pretty high. Rushing offense, they were more middle to bottom of the middle, but we know that the run game is something that they prioritize. And I think they've, with a lot of that is that quarterback, Seth Hennigan, was really good for them for several years, and then they had, what was it, their quarterback this year.
You talking about from Memphis?
Mm-hmm.
You talking about Lewis?
Yes, Lewis. So I think that was the only quarterback that he was there at Memphis for 4 seasons, and he only had one quarterback that wasn't Seth Hennigan. And it was
Lewis transferred in this year from Nevada.
Yeah. So,
And then they had that backup quarterback who
dragged Ian Giffard, and that was foreshadowing because Ian Giffard got dragged again in the Mizzou game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun.
That like I don't know. I have gone back and tried to find this from Silverfield. I remember watching that game and seeing his pregame. I think it was his pregame speech. It might have been a halftime speech, but it was a locker room speech, and I think it was in the pregame. And watching it and thinking, oh boy, Arkansas might be in trouble, just based on the energy that was in that locker room. Now, let's say it was the pregame speech. Arkansas came out and got up 28-10. Remember, Memphis scored a touchdown late. Silverfield, I remember him being, really, kind of fiery at halftime in his interview. I think Memphis I think that they played a lot off of that personality.
Yeah, it seems like it. It seems like he's a decent motivator. It was funny watching him in the team meeting video that they put on Hogs Plus, and even listening to him a little bit yesterday. He does this thing where he keeps saying, like, and I'm not going to do a bunch of corny stuff, and then we'll say, like, the corniest thing you've ever heard, which is fine, but it's like...
It tells you that he's a dad.
Yes, and honestly, like, I think coaches...
That's what dads do.
Like, to me, that's kind of like some of what coaches do. Like, coaches have sayings. They have things they like to do. They have mantras. I
hate it when coaches have sayings.
You're going to love Ryan Silverfield.
Like, I'm all out on all in at this point in time.
Well, Clemson has all in. Clemson's had all in.
Are they all in, too?
Yes, they're all in. It's all over everything there. So I'm very familiar with all in specifically.
All in, yeah. I'm like, Jimmy Dykes had B Arkansas. Brett Bielema had Uncommon. Everybody's got it seems like everybody's got their little saying. And I don't know.
I'm okay with it.
Everybody likes it at the start,
and then it becomes really easy to make fun of.
Yes,
very quickly.
whenever things go south.
Yes,
then the statements are they're susceptible.
Again, winning. If you win, nobody cares about anything. If you don't, everything is bad.
I'm just not into catchphrases.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I'm not. All right, we got a lot more to go. We talked about Silverfield. It feels like the other half of this press conference yesterday was about Hunter Yurachek. And we'll talk about that in a moment. First, another word from Kendall King.
Kendall King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kendall King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kendall King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Welcome back. I want to tell you about our friends at Bentonville Glass. They've been serving their community since 1971. They're committed, professional, and versatile. If you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas or looking for skilled craftsmanship, you can look at Bentonville Glass for all your glass market needs with the highest quality products. Come by and see them at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. I thought one of the most telling things that came out of this yesterday was the timeline of the hire. And you didn't get a detailed timeline, but you got some snippets, which is that Silverfield was talked to by Yurachek at some point in October. We don't know when in October it is. I think we can probably use our brains here and say that there's a very high probability that it was during Memphis's October bye week. October 11th, they didn't play a game. That seems like that would probably be the time to go talk to a sitting head coach during a time when they're not preparing for, when they're not in the middle of a game week. So they played on October 4th. They went to 6-0 at that point. They had the 11th off. Then they played the 18th. You know what happened on the 18th? They lost to UAB. And Alex Mortensen, by the way, the former Razorback quarterback, who just got promoted to the full-time head coaching job at UAB. So congratulations to Alex, who's been on our show before. They finished October with back-to-back wins over South Florida, a good team, obviously. We know who their coach was, and Rice. And so they're 8-1 at that point. And then November, they don't do well against, again, good competition. All those teams finished with 2 losses or less in their conference. And so there are a couple of things here. I wonder, and people are going to wonder this, did Arkansas's interest in him in any form or fashion play a role in the way that the season ended for Memphis? Like, people are going to ask that question. What was the focus at Memphis the same for the back half of the season as it was the first.
There's not
I
really
watched
a good way to
Memphis
know.
play 2 times this year. Once against Arkansas, and I caught the tail end of a game that they were playing, I think against South Florida on a Friday night. So I just don't know a whole lot about Memphis to really know what happened there, why they went 6-0, and then why they went 2-4 on the back end. But it certainly, it does make you wonder. Was how much did what were the conversations like with Arkansas in October, and how that might have influenced his preparation level at the end of the year.
Well, and he talked several times in kind of his radio appearances and his Hogs Plus stuff before the press conference about there was, and I didn't actually know about this because we were so focused on the incorrect Alex Golesh report, but apparently there was kind of a false report that Silverfield had accepted the job that went around, and so he has talked about how he got a ton of texts from a bunch of people, a bunch of coaches being like, congrats on the Arkansas job, like I want to be on your staff.
Wasn't that right before the losing streak began too?
I think it might have been. And he said, he talked about how he had players like coming to his office and crying.
And that's what I was going to say is maybe it's unfair for me to say, did it affect his preparation level? Maybe
it was hanging over the team.
Maybe it's more fair to say, how did that potentially impact the team, wondering if he was all in?
Because he talked about how he talked about how that was something that he had to deal with, and how it was, he spun it positively, where he was like, I got a bunch of texts from a bunch of coaches, and it showed me how many people might be interested in like building this thing with me here. But he mentioned, he was like, I had to I had players that I had to comfort and reassure that I was, going to be here for them, through the season and things. And, that's part of why coaches don't like things like this getting out too early. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I think it's a consideration. I think, we'll probably never know exactly. That's not something you can quantify. But I'm sure it was kind of hanging over everybody.
The whole thing is broken. The whole system is broken. You should not be teams that are coaches who have games remaining. Like you should not be put in a situation to where if you want a promotion at the end of the season, you're going to have to talk to teams about that promotion with 5-6 weeks left in your season. Like in the NFL, they've got it set up perfectly where you coach until the season's over, and then there's a window where you can talk to the coaches. If you fire your coach, you can talk to him, but like you can't talk to a coach when the regular season's still going on. And there's rules and windows in place for talking to coaches who are in the playoffs too. The whole college thing, and we hear people talk about the calendar's broken. The calendar's really broken. And the only way to fix it is to totally go in and just overhaul everything we've ever thought about college football. No spring football. Change it to where you've got OTAs and mini camps and stuff like that. You've got to change it to where the hiring cycle comes after the season ends and before it's time to assemble your personnel. I think that they took a good step in the right direction by putting the transfer portal in January. I think the next step, or a next step, and it may require moving the transfer portal again, but I think a next step is to move signing day back to February, where you've got time to go out and recruit the players. But in order to do that, I think one of the reasons they moved signing day up and the transfer portal back was to try to basically save these high school players.
You have to protect them, yeah.
Who, they've committed, and so they've got to be able to get something in, written in stone, so to speak, that they're going to have a roster spot. And so the whole thing's messed up. But they've got to be able to get to a point where you talk to the coach after the season, and it doesn't potentially wreck his team's season that they're having. If indeed that's what happened at Memphis, I don't know that it was. And then you are able to put together your personnel. And then once you have your personnel put together, then you're able to have team activities and practices. Maybe it means you don't get to go to a spring football game anymore. You're not missing much. I promise you. I promise you. You're not missing anything in a spring football game. But it's the whole thing is just, and I think it's not just Silverfield. It's everybody this year. It's Golesh. It's Morris. Look at Morris and Summerall right now. Like whoever loses this American Championship game tonight, they're gone. They're going to their new team tomorrow.
Yeah.
And whoever wins it, they keep staying on and trying to balance, this thing. I just think there's got to be a better way than the way it works right now. And then I think Silverfield is he's not like the way Arkansas approached Silverfield, and Yurachek talked about this yesterday, wanting to be very respectful of the coach and his team and their situation. I get that, and I take him at his word. I think he really wanted to. But bottom line, you can't be respectful of their situation if you're trying to poach them in the middle of their season.
Yeah, but you have to.
But you're a victim of the system.
Yeah, they leave you no choice. And, you can't, to your point about moving the signing day back to February, you almost can't, because coaches are never going to let that happen because of how many kids are enrolling early now and how much they like that.
But they're only enrolling early to go through spring football.
Yeah.
What happens if you let them actually,
that's true.
Hey,
if you go to
God forbid, let them be a 17-year-old and get through their high school senior year and go to the frickin' prom instead of, to the whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, this seems very easy to me. It's you hire your coaches in December and you do your interviews and everything in December, and then you sign your players in February, your high school players. And then somewhere during the spring, that's when you open your transfer portal, and they get to finish their semester, assuming that academics still matter, which they say they do. They get to finish their semester, and then in the summer, they go to their new team, and in the summer, that's when you have your teamwork, your OTAs, your mini camps, things like that, and then you've got your preseason practice. That seems very simple.
Yeah.
And you know what we call that? We call that the NFL. I mean, and that's what, for the most part, that's what the NFL does. And as college football inches closer and closer and closer to professional football, it would be a good model for them to follow because it seems to work pretty well for the Shield.
Yeah, I think people are really at a breaking point with this calendar after all of the Kiffin stuff, especially. I think you've been hearing all that being a major talking point about, and people have been saying it for years, but I think now it's kind of reaching that boiling point because of all how public facing and how big it is, especially with how big this coaching cycle is and how many teams are affected by it. I think it's really at a boiling point. So I wonder if we'll see some changes or at least more action on the way to action being taken now.
They signed Silverfield last Saturday night. We know that because of the electronic signatures.
I love DocuSign.
Isn't that fun? I don't know that we would have.
We've never seen that, I don't think.
I'm not sure we would have seen that. Or I don't know that we would have known that if it hadn't been for the electronic signatures that were on the term sheet that was turned in. But I think Yurachek signed at like 11:02 on Saturday night, Silverfield at 11:09. So this was after Arkansas had played its game against Missouri. I thought it was interesting where he said Yurachek, and it makes you wonder, was Silverfield their top target? Because Yurachek said he texted him going into the Navy game, good luck on your game. Silverfield texted him, before the Missouri game, hey, good luck. And then Yurachek said that he even stepped out of his AD suite and went out and talked to Silverfield on the phone during halftime. Can you imagine, like, if you were a reporter and you just
thought this too.
Hey, the Dr. Pepper's out in the back of the press box. I'm going to go upstairs to the concession stand and grab a Dr. Pepper. And you just happen to wander across, just past the AD suite. And what's going on here? I don't know. You got anything, but what if you did? What if they were FaceTiming out there? I don't think they would be, but just what if?
I thought the exact same thing. I had the exact same thought. I mean, my friend that covers Virginia Tech, somebody saw their SID slacking a James Franklin graphic on press row at a basketball game, and everyone was like, "All right, James Franklin."
Or you're just snarky and you just pass on her. Hey, Hunter, you found a coach yet?
Yeah,
ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
This guy.
Yeah.
I don't know, but so that it kind of gave you an idea into the timeline. He didn't say when they did the in-home visits. He did tell me that he did in-home visits with all three of their finalists. And going back to something earlier, he did not confirm to me that they were the three finalists, Womack, Golish, and Silverfield, but he did not deny it. Mm-hmm. And so those were the three finalists. I'm confident in saying that those were the three finalists. I think they did the in-home visits with them right there around the Texas game. Ed Fryer, Hunter told me yesterday that Ed Fryer was involved in this search, which is what we had heard during the search. He's a Board of Trustees member, and we know that a plane that is registered to an LLC that has an affiliation with Fryer was used during this coaching search, and it made stops in Memphis and Tuscaloosa and Tampa right around the Texas game. So it seems to add up pretty well.
Yeah, it definitely lines up, and I don't think that's super surprising to anybody.
I got to pull up these other names here. We know Kevin Scanlon was part of this search too. Scanlon obviously was a quarterback for the Razorbacks. Works for Stevens down in Little Rock, and he's a board member for the Razorback Foundation, and so it makes sense that he was involved in this. And then Hunter told me too that a couple of others who were involved in this search, Rick Thorpe, who's a deputy AD for the Razorbacks, and Randy Massinelli, who's a vice chancellor for governmental relations at the UA. I think that the chancellor basically said, we would like to have somebody who's part of this process. And so I think that group of 5, which would be Yurachek, Fryer, Scanlon, Massinelli, and Thorpe, they were involved in some of the real preliminary work. And then once it got down to the very end, which was probably the in-home visits, it was Fryer, Scanlon, and Yurachek. And this is what Yurachek told me yesterday. He said, I did the first part of the search by myself. This was me getting on the phone, traveling to meet some coaches where they were, and then we narrowed the field down. We got that down to 8 or 9. We had an hour to an hour and a half Zoom calls with all those candidates and just narrowed that field down. He said then it was really just Ed and Kevin and I that did the rest of the search.
You also talked to him a little bit about how the college football playoff, taking over as chair in the middle of that term, how that kind of influenced things. What did he tell you about that?
Well, I asked him I'd have to go back and find this real quick. So I asked him during the press conference about that. Help me out here while I find this transcript.
Yeah, I mean,
what did he say during the?
He talked a little bit about.
Forgive me, folks. I haven't slept a whole lot.
He talked a little bit about how, it was something he was very aware of, but I think it was not necessarily something that he felt like was going to be a huge thing. He said, the benefit was he's watching a lot of football during the week.
That's right.
He was evaluating, allowed him. He kind of spun it into like, it actually kind of helped me because I got to watch a lot of different coaches and see how they do stuff. And then he also talked about how he kind of leaned on that staff a little bit to kind of help him get through it. And I think that group, I brought that up because you mentioned the group that was kind of involved with that kind of inner circle that was working with him.
And that's been a criticism of his among the many from people being the chairman of the playoff committee or even being on the playoff committee in general, did it influence the coaching search at all? Did it take away the time that he could have been putting toward the coaching search? I can only imagine what his schedule's been like. And I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for Hunter Yurachek. I'm just saying, I can only imagine what his schedule has been like trying to balance a head coaching search and this playoff committee appointment. And, oh, by the way, he's got 18 other teams that are on his watch that, he's trying to handle new contracts, game schedule. I mean, it's like there's a ton that goes into all of this.
Yeah, there's a lot. And I mean, it's not over yet. I mean, they had all that. I was thinking yesterday about, and again, not telling anybody to feel sorry for them, but I was like imagining yesterday the media car wash and the celebration afterward and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, they must be so exhausted at the end of all this, all the socializing they did yesterday. Him and Ryan especially. But I know he was back on the flight from XNA to Dallas this morning. So
this is what he said. I said, was there any hesitancy? This is when I was talking to him afterward. I said, was there any hesitancy to take the chairmanship? And he said there was not. The committee needed him to step up, and he did that. Rich Clark, who's the executive director of the playoff committee, actually went to him, or of the playoff. He's the executive director of the CFP, went to him and asked if he would do this when Mack Rhodes stepped down, the former Baylor AD. He said, I thought that's what was best, and it was an honor just to even be asked to do that.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. We were wondering kind of how that process worked, though. I remember we talked on the show about this, about how that came to be. Was it something that the conference had to nominate, or does he put himself up for it? But it sounds like, they just went directly to him.
So the conference nominated him for the spot.
Yes,
Sankey,
and that's typical.
Basically, how this works is that each conference who's part of the playoff, they get to appoint one person to the playoff committee. And so Yurachek is the appointee for the SEC. Greg Sankey came to him, said, this has been almost 2 years ago. Would this be something that you'd be interested in doing? He said yes. They did it. This is his second year of a 3-year term. The chairmanship, that's a totally different deal. Where the committee, the playoff itself, determines who is the committee chair.
Yeah, so we had wondered about that a little bit, but that makes sense.
He didn't want to talk about financials yesterday. You got to ask about it. Trust me. You can't
That's
say
his whole job. That's your job.
Say that he was not asked about financials.
And then people were mad that we asked too much about financials. I'm like, I'm just saying this is important.
It was weird, in a different way than when he had that joint press conference with Petrino after Pittman got fired. There was a lot of talk about this is awkward for Bobby because, I asked Hunter point blank during that press conference. I said, the AD is, your job security is based on the, viability of the football program. Do you think you're going to be running this search? Well, that's an awkward thing for your interim head coach to be sitting there as you're answering that question.
Ask.
And I felt, and far be it from me to tell them how to set up something from a media relations standpoint. I thought this might have gone better yesterday if Hunter would have had his own separate press conference from
Gone
Silverfield.
better how? I didn't think it went
I don't think it went
poorly.
bad. I'm just saying, from an awkwardness standpoint, it's always a tough deal. And this same thing, and I told them this after Yurachek fired Mike Anderson. And he didn't talk to anybody about it until he hired Musselman. So whenever he hired Musselman, he had to answer questions about firing Mike Anderson. Maybe it's unavoidable. Maybe it is. But, so if people are mad about asking all these financial questions, well, this is the opportunity that you get to ask the AD about the financial stuff.
Essential information, actually.
You just kind of have to do it.
Yeah.
And, in Silverfield, I asked him yesterday, how much did it influence you to take the job?
Yeah.
The financial commitment that they were making to you.
Yeah, especially after what Hunter said to your question at the Pittman fired, Petrino promoted sort of press conference when you asked, did Pittman have the resources to compete? And he said no.
Right.
That has been cited by everybody this entire search. And that was something that was like, okay, now how are you going to hire a coach when you just said that your last coach didn't have the resources? And that was why it was so important to talk about yesterday and to get answers. And I thought Tom Murphy from Democrat Gazette was really smart to ask, in particular, hey, you say you got this big financial commitment. Is that money on hand or is this a process? And he was like, we're working on it. Because a lot of it is, you don't necessarily get a huge chunk of money given to you. You set a goal, you have money that's...
You're not walking in with $10 million in new cash.
Yes.
Here, Ryan.
Exactly. They said that there is a plan, from the university side, but there is continuous fundraising effort that is going to happen every year. That is not going to... There's not an end point. There's not a once we reach this number, we'll be good. It is a continuous fundraising effort. And so I thought it was smart of Tom to ask that. And, that was something with when Virginia Tech, when they kind of announced, they actually put a number out. I can't remember how much it was, but they announced sort of a new investment in the athletic department.
Oh, it's over $200 million.
Yes, but not all of that is on hand. That's not all guaranteed. This is somebody is promising to give you this amount. It's kind of it's a little bit different.
Based on some future revenues.
Yes, exactly. So I thought it was smart to kind of clarify that. So there was a lot to go over from a business perspective, which I know is a little dry, but it's very important, especially when they have talked so openly about their need for money.
I was thinking the whole time that we were in there and he was answering these questions, and I was kind of watching Silverfield, just listen to him talk about stuff that I'm sure that he's not even totally caught up on yet. It's the absurdity of the Jerry Jones press conferences with his coaches, with the Cowboys, and how, it goes back to what I said earlier. It felt like there were kind of two separate press conferences going on in one. You had the head coach talking about, turnovers and barbecue and why did you take the job? And then you got Yurachek talking about the financial or being asked about the financial side of it the whole time.
Yeah, it was a mixed bag for sure, but I think that was to be expected. I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think it was horribly awkward. I didn't think it was ruined to Silverfield's introduction or anything.
No, I don't think it did either. And the other thing is, I thought it was important to ask him. There's a notion out there that the search was totally disorganized and messy,
which is interesting because I don't feel that way.
I don't feel that way, but I've read some stuff and I've heard some stuff. Josh Pate, who's a prominent college football podcaster, I don't know what the word he used was, but that was kind of that was the tenor of something that I heard him say a week or so ago, that it's been kind of a disorganized search process for Arkansas. And I read something somewhere else too. I'd have to go back and find it. I don't want to cite somebody incorrectly, but but basically, there had been, the point being, in a couple of places where that kind of stuff can get amplified, and it can become, that can kind of become the public opinion really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was important to ask him, do you feel like you ran a disorganized search?
Mm-hmm.
Or how did you characterize it? I think maybe that's how I ask it. And he said, from my perspective, it was very organized. He said they went from 25 to 30 coaches down to 9, down to 3, down to 2, and obviously down to 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think they cast a super wide net, which I don't know how common that is, but I don't think that means mess. I mean, if you want to talk about mess, look at Penn State. Like, I don't think that this was anything.
It looks like they're gonna end up getting bailed out.
Yeah.
The reports today are that Matt Campbell's gonna take that job.
Remember when Matt Campbell was gonna be the Arkansas coach, according to like everyone?
I know when that was. I remember that being reported.
Yeah.
I don't think it was ever.
No, I don't either.
I don't think there was like
That's
any
what I mean.
reality,
That's what I
like
mean.
any. I never felt like it had any legs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're getting to that point that we thought we were going to, and I'm interested to see what the final number is going to be of Power 4 jobs that come open, because now we're in that process where you get the Lane Kiffin to Ole Miss jump. Now, Ole Miss, they surprised everybody by going and just elevating Pete Golding to the full-time head coach, and I think, my personal opinion is that's going to end up costing them. But now you're in that point where Chris Kleiman at Kansas State, he just said that he's going to retire, and so now they're a job that was open, and Colin Klein's going to go there, and now you got this. Will Campbell be the domino? I guess maybe that's the question. If he goes from Iowa State to Penn State, like these reports suggest he might, is Iowa State going to go get a sitting Power 4 coach from somewhere, and then does they? See what I'm saying? I still think that we're going to end up potentially with somewhere around 15 to 25% of the Power 4 jobs coming open this year. And I guess we're already over 15%, maybe more like in the 20 to 25, 30% of these jobs coming open this year, and having new coaches in place next year at the Power 4 level.
Yeah, I don't think we're particularly close to being done with all of this yet.
And this is before, and I don't know who would be a candidate to do this, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, any year where you see this before the NFL hiring cycle comes open, but do they poach a head coach out of a Power 4 program?
Yeah, it's possible. There's always the potential for that move. There's a few coaches that I feel like get talked about a lot. I mean, people talk about that with like Marcus Freeman sometimes, about one day if that being an option. So yeah, you never know.
I think the big takeaway here is that most of the jobs that have come open this year have been filled by coordinators and group of whatever coaches, right? I mean, there just hasn't been a whole lot of the Lane Kiffin jump, and like the domino effect. There have been a lot of jobs that have been open, but the domino effect, at least to this point, has not occurred. Yeah,
it's been different, but it's for something as busy as it is and as somewhat chaotic as it has been just because of the volume of jobs. The Kiffin thing took so much oxygen because it was the biggest thing that happened. You haven't seen, like to your point, about that many sort of poachings from big schools. The Matt Campbell thing is the next big one.
So there you go. That's what happened yesterday with Ryan Silverfield. Basketball plays this weekend. Fresno State down in North Little Rock. It's going to be a 3 o'clock tip-off at Simmons Bank Arena. I still want to call it Alltel Arena. That
really?
was like 2 arena names ago.
That's really funny.
The funniest part was I had a friend told me one time, is like, where I could not get an Alltel signal in Little Rock? Alltel Arena. So anyway, Simmons Bank Arena. That's where this game's going to be played tomorrow between Arkansas and Fresno State. We'll have a lot of coverage for that at our website, wholehogsports.com. Hope to see you there or back here on the podcast on Monday. Have a great day, everybody.